All right, so good morning, everybody. We're going to discuss education. I think this may be a repeat for some of you who have been around for a while, but for those who are new, this is always good information to have. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we capture education in Aware and where we capture education in Aware. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by sharing my screen into. Can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Cool. Let me make you guys big over here so I can see. There you go. Okay, so I have three documents that I'm going to kind of go back and forth from to kind of try to spell out how we capture education in Aware. And then I'll probably do a small demo on where that is in Aware. But first we'll go through the tip sheets. And all of these tip sheets, including training videos, are located on the new BRSnet. So if you ever want a refresher or review, they're there for you. I mean, I get it. Like, if you're not putting in educational goals and you're not capturing credentials all the time, you may forget how to do it. So this information is out there for you. So just know that, and I'll show you where that is on the new BRSnet. But I'm going to start off with this document. It's called How to Capture Education and Credentials in Aware. And the top part here is actually really important. Um, there are two main areas that we capture education. One is help me out, characteristics at plan. Thank you, I got there. And the other is in the educational goal page. Um, the primary difference is the characteristics at plan page is designed to capture information that the client comes to VR with, or the client has already attained prior to their first plan. Does that make sense to everybody? And frankly, capturing credentials in the characteristics that plan page for clients that are just coming to us is way easier than creating an educational goal for someone who graduated high school in 1968. And that, for some of you who have been around for a while, that's how we used to do it. It was kind of confusing. We used to capture education information for previous old education information in the educational goal page, and we don't do that anymore. So this is an easier way to do that. So the characteristics at plan page captures credentials that the VR participant earned prior to their current case with VR or their first plan, however you like to conceptualize that. So basically what that means is at intake, you're having a conversation with your client and you're like, oh, by the way, when you graduate high school, and you would enter that information on this characteristics at plan page. And I'll show you that in Aware after we go through this tip sheet. And I'm scrolling back up and it says credentials earned via the education page applies to participants enrolled in an education or training program, excluding on-the-job training and customized training, who attain recognized post-secondary credential or secondary school diploma or equivalent during participation in or within 1 year of exit of the VR program. Does that make sense to folks? We're capturing educational information while they're involved with us in the educational goal page. And newsflash, we actually technically are supposed to be capturing credential information after they exit for a year after they leave the VR program. I don't think we're doing a good job on that because I don't really think we're set up to do that. So I think that's kind of a work in progress, but just so you know. All right. So this next section just talks about, excuse me, how to document when no credentials have been earned prior to VR. Who am I talking about here? Like students, right? Kids, transition people. They haven't graduated yet, so we need to capture their progress because the Rehab Service Administration likes to know what kind of education people come to us with and what kind of education people leave us with. So you'll see in
John,
this, Jeff.
can I
Yes,
ask you a
yes.
question about that?
Sure, Nita.
For some clients, I'm receiving are being homeschooled
Hmm.
up to the fifth or sixth grade and then nothing. And so when
Okay.
they come to us, then they have to go back and try to earn their GED or high set.
Mm-hmm.
And for capturing that information, if they're homeschooled up until like 5, 6, 7 years old, you still want that in there?
Yep. Yep. Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can just case note the situation. When I go into Aware, I'll show you the drop down here. This is a screenshot, has
Mhm.
all those options.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd be able to capture that as well. Good question.
Is this
Thank you.
new?
No, this is not new. Um, I think we've had the character. Remember when it used to be called barriers to employment back in the day? Any of you guys who've been around? Anyway, characteristics that plan used to be called barriers to employment, and I don't know if it had education information. Um, they they updated it and called barriers to employment characteristics that plan and added the education stuff. So it's been around. Geez, I don't know, 2019, 20, I think, I guess. So So in
Thank
this,
you.
yeah, no problem. In this first example, in the characteristics that plan page, um, this is an example of someone who is a junior in high school. They've come to me their junior year, which is fairly typical, I think, for transition referrals. And I've indicated that they've completed their 10th grade. Simple, easy as that. And then I've indicated that they haven't completed any post-secondary. Right? Makes sense. Pretty standard for a transition kid. And you'll see this button here, credentials earned. There's nothing there because they haven't earned anything yet. So that's blank, but we'll scroll down and we'll show you an instance where you'd want to populate something there. All right, so for an adult or student with a disability who has earned credentials such as a high school diploma and college degree prior to their initial VR plan, those credentials would be documented under credentials earned on the characteristics that plan page. So I was just kind of talking about that. And this is the same exact screen as the one above, except for it's just populated a little bit differently. Here in this example, I've indicated that my adult client has graduated high school. So I put the 12 there, like they've completed 12 years of high school. And they've actually got a bachelor's degree as well. So I indicated that they've completed 4 years of post-secondary. And down here under the credentials earn button, this is where you would indicate when they got their high school diploma and their bachelor's degree. So you'd hit that new button, find the right drop down at intake, be like, hey, when did you graduate high school? They'll be like, I don't remember. And you'll be like, well, just tell me the year. And typically people will remember the year. So you put the year in there. Same goes with the bachelor's degree, just at intake or whenever it is you have your conversations with folks. Just get a year that they graduated. Don't worry about the month and day, just give it an estimate as best you can. So there, you have captured education prior to plan. And I don't know what the data elements are, and this is probably nothing that you guys need to know about, but this triggers a reportable data element on the RSA 911, because they just, like I said, they want to know what they came to us with and what they got while they were here. And Amanda, that's why I was messaging you, because I was trying to run a detail report with a fake person so I could just show people so they have an idea what you deal with, but I couldn't do it because I don't know why. Anyway, maybe I'll show you some other time. It's a really long report that has all the little data elements that when we click things in Aware, it like puts a little one by it or a checkbox or whatever the case may be. And that's what we send to RSA to say that we're doing something. Okay, scrolling down. So I just indicated here, this particular tip sheet was about how to document credentials. And obviously when we document credentials, we would like to have a copy of a high school diploma or a report card only for educational goals, which we haven't gotten to yet. You don't have to get a copy of someone's high school diploma from 1967. So don't think that that's a thing. Scrolling down. Okay, so the next piece is how to create an educational goal. And I'm actually going to pop over to a different tip sheet called How to Document Secondary Education in MSGs. And on this tip sheet, focuses on educational goals. We're out of the characteristics that plan realm right now. Now we're in the world of, hey, we're working with a high school student in this particular example, and they are enrolled in their junior year of high school. And this is how we would document that. Student with a disability, SWD status, and educational goals are forever linked. You have to have an open educational goal for a client in Aware to be considered a student with a disability. Super duper important. I can't emphasize that enough.
Can I say something, Jeff, real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's related to the SWD status. So
Mhm.
even students that are under the PE case status, if they're attending boot camp, they need to have an SWD status. So even in PE cases, you would have to enter an educational goal because I can't populate their actual service for their boot camp services if they're not a student with a disability. I've run into that a couple of times, so I just want to let people know that because usually people are like, well, they're PE cases, of course they're a student. Well, yes, but because of the way that Aware is set up, they're not a student with a disability without the educational goal. So
Yeah.
unless the educational goal is in the PE case, I can't enter that service. So I just wanted to kind of mention that because, like you said, the educational goal is where the SWD status is linked.
The open educational goal. And when I mean open, means it has a begin date and an expected end date, but it doesn't have an end date because if it has an end date, that educational goal is closed. But yes, just to build on what Amanda said, has anyone ever gone into like a student and tried to create a plan, but the pre-ETS services aren't there? Like you're like, what the heck's going on? It's because you didn't do the educational goal piece yet. The open educational goal is linked to, like Amanda said, actual services. It's linked to whether the activities provided options are going to appear in case notes. Like you're familiar with that. You go into a case note and you meet with a kid and talk to them, and you talk to them about enrollment opportunities or job exploration counseling. You write your case note and you check the box off, and that reports a data element. Anyway, it's not going to appear in a case note or an authorization if there's not an open educational goal. So if you ever wonder why, that's what's happening. So this screenshot educational goal, I got a 17-year-old person, and it says here on student with a disability status, no, it's because I haven't set up my educational goal yet. So I click the new button, and 2, 3, and 4 are the fields that are required on this particular page. You got to pick what the educational goal is. In this case, it's secondary education. And then the next field is, what is the begin date? So secondary education is the only educational goal that we cover a 4-year span of a kid's high school experience. We try to get the date when they started their freshman year through when we expect them to graduate. In this instance, this is an old screenshot. They started their freshman year in 2017, and we expect them to graduate in 2021. And you'll notice here an actual end date, there's nothing there because we want to keep this educational goal open. So the next piece is capturing a measurable skill gain. So a measurable skill gain, the easy one for a high school student is a high school diploma if they graduate, or a transcript or report card. We get credit, another data element that we report in RSA 911. And this screenshot here is just reminding people, though, that we have to, for MSGs, we have to have documentation. And that can be a screenshot. It can be whatever. It can be a report card from the records department at the school, however it is you track this stuff down. We just have to get that into a case note. If we ever got audited, we'd have to show that we have this backup documentation. And so here I'm showing that I have created an educational goal. There's one piece that's actually missing. I'm just going to scroll down. Does anyone know what's missing from this? There's no screenshot about entering the school. Everyone knows we got to enter a school, right? But anyway, we'll get there. So this screenshot here is showing that, hold on, I can zoom in a little bit too because it's small. It's showing that because we opened up an educational goal, this student with a disability field now reads yes. So you've done your job. You've made this person pre-ETS eligible in all those different areas. And I'm scrolling down. The next section talks about entering measurable skill gains. So in order to do that here with number 2, you got to open up the goal in this little tiny link. We're all fairly used to that if you've been around for a while, but it always amazes me how they make it so small. But anyway, I opened up my educational goal, and I scroll down to the measurable skill gains section, section 2, and I've got my diploma in case notes. I hit the new button, or the report card, whatever it is. So I'm scrolling down. The new button, it will populate this, whatever you call this, like a table, where you would indicate when the person got their transcript, like what May or June, whatever it is. And then you would indicate which skill gain type is there. Only skill gains, you see how it says secondary transcript or report card? These here are linked to these. So if you change the educational goal, you'll have different options down here. So that way you can't really mess up. So it'll only give you the options that are available. And back in the day, I didn't really know what a skill gain description field should be used for. Like, I don't know what people put in there. Let me know if you put something in there that's, I mean, because it's pretty straightforward. It's a report card, right? So I don't really know what else to put there. So I just indicated that please see case notes for a copy of the transcript. I don't know what others do, but that's what I thought it should be used for.
I would even maybe reference the date of the case note.
Okay, yeah, so they
You
can
know, see,
find it.
please case note dated such and such for a copy of the transcript.
It's a good idea. If you want to get real detailed, yeah, it's a good idea. So I'm going to hop over to post-secondary education. I'm not going to go through every single goal, but I would like to just talk about post-secondary education and how this is different than secondary education. So the overview says post-secondary educational goals must be set each school year. So that's different than the secondary, right? Where we did the 4-year block, but this one's got to be each school year. And then MSGs should be captured each semester. So like, right, they get semester ends, they get a transcript, and we would want to try to get that entered into AWARE. And here's some criteria. In order for them to earn an MSG at a post-secondary school, the student must be enrolled at least 12 credit hours per semester if a full-time student, or at least 12 credit hours over 2 semesters during a 12-month period if a part-time student. No one ever remembers this. So definitely refer back to this sheet and then talk to your supervisor if you need clarifications if they qualify for an MSG. So to enter a post-secondary ed goal, you go in your ed goal, hit the new button, and you choose your educational goal dropdown, and you select your begin date and end date. You look at the begin date and you say, well, that's not when someone starts college. You know, that's not necessarily, they don't start in July. Well, that's because we're just trying to keep this educational goal open for a certain period of time. These begin date and expected end dates, generally speaking, start in July and end in June. But there's some flexibility. Like say you had a high school student and they were going for a 5th year, that expected end date, there's some flexibility there. You can move that expected end date out. Does that make sense to people? These dates are important just to keep the ed goal open if that's the case. And here, I indicated that yes, part of creating an educational goal is entering the school. Some of you have gone into the school page, right? And you say, okay, there's a little mini search. And I found that in the mini search is where you get all of the main high schools. They're pretty much in the system, whereas a lot of the colleges are not in the mini search. But there's a field right under the mini search that's a free form school field. And you can just type in what college it is or what school they're going to that may not be in the system.
Can I interject? I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I've had to start doing a new report every month that tracks how many people we have with an open ed goal for every school. And I'm running into problems where people are putting abbreviations, but sometimes the abbreviations aren't correct or the school's not spelt correctly. Or so if we could just make sure when we're having to enter in schools, if we could just put the actual name of the school and spell it correctly, if obviously if there's enough space, I don't know what the text limitations are. But I know, for example, somebody tried to put in, I think it was like there's like a reach program or something like that. And for somebody who's not familiar with transition and things like that, I don't know what that means. So I've had to Google some, and some I found and some I haven't. So if we can just make sure that we're, for purposes of data and all of that, just putting in the full name of the school, that would be really helpful for me, because it takes me a long time to do this report. So sorry, just a little plug.
So that's how you enter educational goals. And again, educational goals are for education while enrolled in the VR program and for 1 year after closure. And just to kind of reinforce what we've been talking about, I'll go into a test environment in Aware. I think this is. So this is a new person that's come to me. It's a transition student. And I've got rid of all my to-dos and I'm working towards doing my intake and working towards completing the characteristics that plan page. So I open that page up and this is where I would select the last full year that they completed. In Anita, you can see that if it's a homeschool kid and it was only 5th grade, you can indicate that here. So, but my person was referred to me their junior year. So I've indicated that they have completed the 10th grade. So say this person was an adult and they completed they completed high school. So I'd indicate that they completed the 12th grade. I would need to use this credentials earn button to capture that high school diploma. So I'd hit new, click the drop down, and then I would select high school diploma. You can see there's a GED option as well if that's the case. I select that. In that intake, I'm like, hey, when did you graduate? And they said, 1998. And then, so I would just put this date in here. Say they oh, okay, that's fine, whatever. Need to put 6. And then say there was an instance where you had an adult and they had completed some college, say an associate's degree, and then it was 2 years, I would indicate 2 years of post-secondary. And then I'd hit this new button again. And then I would pick associate's degree. And they said, hey, I got it in May of 2004. You've captured credentials prior to their first VR plan already. That's all it takes. And then you hit finish, and that little data element is going to float over to RSA 911 as a credential that they had prior to VR involvement. So that's why it's important. Everywhere you click in Aware is reporting some piece of data to the 911. And Amanda, maybe next time, like I said earlier, we can like just give them a visual of like a detail report or whatever and say, here's the 400 and whatever data elements we report on. Just sometimes it's helpful just to put those pieces together.
And before we're done today too, I wanted to chat about something too related to RSA with regards to ed goals and stuff. So
Sheila.
I just want to make sure that it's clear, because it's from my understanding, this is supposed to happen for everyone that walks through our door, correct?
Yeah, yeah, VR
Okay.
case,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yep, that's what I
Yep.
thought.
Yep, not just transition, it's for adults. It's like,
Right.
basically like when you're having your intake, I used to just open this page up and go through the questions and say, hey, you know, when you graduate, and then just fill it out as I went along. But you don't have to do that. But yeah, it's we get this information for everybody.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Mhm. So that's characteristics at plan. So I hit finish to save my changes. And then so again, I know that was an example of an adult, but let's just go back and pretend that this is a junior in high school. So important to do this early. Because why? Why do you have to have an open educational goal? It's tied to all the pre-ETs. Pre-ETs won't be on a plan. Pre-ETs won't be available in an actual service or an authorization, or that activities provided on a case note until you do the educational goal page. So you open that up, and you'll see right now, student with disability, no. So it means I haven't done it yet. So I'm gonna hit the new button to set up my secondary educational goal. Pick secondary for high school. And then my person is projected to graduate because they're a junior, so they're going to graduate like June of 2026. So covering my 4-year span for like we do for secondary, I'm going to go 07 because we're covering the whole calendar year. 07, 2022 because that was when they were freshmen, and they're projected to graduate in 2026. Does that make sense to everybody? It's a
Yeah.
little wacky with these dates. Again, it's so they have an educational goal open the whole calendar year. Like say like we did this for, say we changed this to September, because that's actually when they started their freshman year in September, not July. And then they graduate and we expected them to complete in June of 2026. There's a 2-month period of July and August that wouldn't be covered here. So their educational goal would get closed if we put the expected end date of 06, 2000, well, 26. We have to go in the fast forward machine. That makes sense to people. That part I always got hung up with, and it was confusing to me for a long time, but it finally got, all it means is we have to keep that educational goal open to retain that SWD status.
And Jeremy had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Jeremy. I just want to ask a clarifying question. So when you're creating the IPE, will that alert you if there's no ed goal and they are within the transitional age range?
It's, yeah, there's a pop-up that says, I forget what it says, but it says something like this person, is secondary education this person's goal, or something on, there is a pop-up that happens in the,
Yeah, there's a
IPE.
checkbox that says, is secondary education a goal for this
Yeah.
person?
and
So
if you
it
say
is,
yes, then it says something about
yeah,
educational goals.
yeah, and then you'll notice that if the pre-ETS services aren't there, then that means that goal isn't open.
Yeah, I think sometimes, you know, as a new VRC, I didn't understand that checkbox in the IPE.
Yeah.
And then to understand that's only for secondary. So if you mistakenly check that, that'll kind of set a chain of events to say this is maybe a student with a disability. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Good question.
So I'm setting up my secondary goal, and these are the only 3 fields on this page that I need to worry about right now. But I do have to populate my school field. So I click the new button under section 3 in schools. And then, like I said, this mini search, Sheila, do you have your hand up again, or is that just a pop up in my?
I do, and I'm not sure that
Oh.
this is the place to ask the question, so please let me know if it's not. It's actually 2 questions. One, I have a client who's looking to become a lawyer. She's in her bachelor program right now. So would I be putting in for the in this for the 4-year degree first and then later add the law program if she
You-
decides to do that later?
You would, yes, you would do it 1 year at a time for post-secondary.
Okay.
Like it,
And
say she's
then
in her, yep.
and then I have a client who's taking 1 or 2 classes a semester because that's his ability at this moment. How would I put him in? Because you said a year at a time, right? They need to be taking 12 classes.
That's only for earning, I think, what MSG is, right, Jeff? Like if they're in a class, even just 1 or 2, that's still an open educational goal.
Okay.
It will only be what we call a measurable skill gain if they earn 12 credits within that 12-month period. So
12,
whereas
12
most,
credits within 12 months.
yeah, so most
Okay.
students that go to post-secondary education are usually at least full-time 12 credits a semester. So that means every semester when they finish and gain those 12 credits, you can put in a measurable skill gain saying that they earned that. But if it's a
Okay.
part-time student, at least 12 credit hours over the 2 semesters or within a 12-month period. So like you might have a part-time student that does, 1 class in the fall, 2 in the spring, and then takes a summer course. As long as that equals 12 credits, then they've got an MSG, but it's just for the
Okay.
MSG. If they're taking a class, then you should have an open educational goal, even if it's just 1 or
Okay.
2 classes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. What happened? Okay. So back in the school page, and I'm going to look for a school. And I found that the high school is in here, so I'm able to use the mini search, and then it automatically populates the school system and all that good stuff. Like I said, this one here is for schools that don't populate. So you can like type in like whatever the school might be that doesn't show up in the mini search. And both of these will show up on I think it's like educational goal tracking with MSG's layout. Like there's a column that will populate this one and this one. Some people might use that layout and they're like, why do I have like schools over here in this column and then schools over here in this column? It's because it's trying to pull from these 2 separate.
It pulls all 3. It pulls the school,
Yeah.
the system, and the school name.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd indicate if the person has an IEP or a 504 plan. Here's the one that used to hang people up. The begin date of the school record has to match the begin date of the educational goal. If you think about it, it makes sense, right? If not, you're going to get an aware error message. So what did I say? 07, 2022. Well, let me put in a wrong date and see what happens. Oh, nothing concerning. You know that error message where it says the school time frame does not match up with the educational goal? It's because of this, and I don't know when that error happens or when that to do happens. Let's see what happens. Trying to see if I can, let me change that. See date and see if I can get it to. Let's see. Education. This is the one. Because I had put in the wrong date in my school record. So this should be 07, 2022. Hit finish. That to do is gone because I got my begin date of my educational goal to match the begin date of the school record. And I'm just going to go back into the ed goal to show you, since we've set that educational goal, student with a disability has changed to yes, and we can now start documenting pre-ed services. Trying to think if there's anything else as far as capturing education and aware goes. And that's pretty much all of it.
Audrey, it looks like Audrey has a question.
Sure.
Hi, I've run into this for a while, so I'm really glad I have the opportunity to get this clarified. If you have a client, like going off what the other question was, I work with adults. And sometimes they're going to college and they're not going to get that 12 credit hours in a year even. But if you even put the 12 hours in at the end of the year, does that complete the first year post-secondary? Because if you're going for a bachelor's degree, you're going to need to get 120 credit hours. How does that go?
So it would be, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you would end it as that they were still doing their first post-secondary year. So if they only got 12 credits in one academic year, then the next educational goal would still be first year post-secondary because they haven't completed the full 24 credits that they need to become a second year student.
This is Jeff. Remember how I said you can extend out the expected end date? So I don't think so if they're still in first post-secondary, I wouldn't create a second first post-secondary. I would just extend out the expected end date.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So another question, is it 30 credit hours? Is because it's 120 for your bachelor's degree. So that would be, it breaks down to 30. I used to live by those credit hours when I was in undergrad. So is it 30 or 24?
It is 30. In order to get the full 120 within 4 years. However, institutions do credit hours differently. So some institutions, if you have 24 credits, you're considered a second year.
Okay.
So it really depends on the actual institution. But yes, in order to graduate in 4 years, yes, you need 30 credits per academic year. But each institution uses a different like credit hour determination for what year they are.
Okay.
Which I wish we could tell students more.
No, so I guess we'll have to figure that one out as we go along, because I'm not sure, like, usually we have the same colleges for the most part, UNA, USM, SMCC, et cetera. So I don't know how they do it. I guess I should find out.
You can, if you wanted to, you can actually go onto the college's registrar's page, and their academic handbook would tell you what they consider credit hours. Yeah. And then they also tell you like, you know, what the GPA requirements are and all of that stuff. So yeah, I used to work in a registrar's office. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That clarifies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amanda, thank you. I'm glad you're here because I wouldn't know that. So
Yeah. Yeah, you can find a lot of information on the individual colleges registrar websites and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Jeff, are you all set? Can I say something?
Just one thing I just wanted to show people, all the documents that I just pulled up, these different documents here, they're all on the new BRSnet. So if you went to the new BRSnet and just typed in like, you know, education at the top search field, it's going to pull up all these documents that have to do with education. Just an easier way to do it than like searching DVR forms. So just if you start using this BRSnet, this new one, you know, totally take advantage of this search feature. But that's all I wanted to say.
Do we have a new name for that yet? Has that come out yet?
I suggested JeffNet, but I don't
Well,
know if
you
that's
worked hard enough on it, right?
I don't know if that's
has not been announced yet.
No.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, because you know, we were really stressing about, you know, being able to access like pre-ed services, you know, they need to be a student with a disability. Sometimes when I'm getting ready to submit our, you know, quarterly file, sometimes what I run into is an error where somebody has received pre-ed services, but they are no longer a student with a disability. And sometimes most of the time what we find out is what's happened is that educational goals are not necessarily being updated as regularly as they might need to be. And I totally get it. Like, I can't imagine having a caseload of 120 students. Like, you guys amaze me every day for being able to keep track of all of that. But what that means is that because they're still unaware as a student with a disability, when you're creating authorizations, when you're working with CRPs, you know, we're using funds, pre-ETS funds to pay for those services. And then what happens is a VRC goes back and goes, oh no, I forgot to update this ed goal. It should have ended 3 or 4 months ago. And so now we've got an error in the fact that we've accidentally used pre-ETS funds to pay for somebody who technically wasn't eligible to receive pre-ETS. We find ways to fix that, to submit the quarterly file, but with regards to like data management and quality control and quality assurance, I would really like to be able to get to the point where that's less and less of what I'm finding on our RSA quarterly files. So again, I totally understand. I can't, like I said, I can't imagine having, you know, a caseload of 120 students to try to keep track of. But I just wanted to put that out there and just, you know, remind people that, you know, ed goals do need to be updated, you know, as soon as they, you know, if they've graduated and they're not going on to post-secondary, or if they graduated from post-secondary, you know, make sure that they're updated, or if they've decided that they're not going to continue with post-secondary, you know, secondary, or if they've aged out, that's another good one. And then, you know, that also affects if you're working with CRPs, you know, so if your client is no longer a student with a disability, don't forget to update your CRPs. So you'll need to, you know, create that new plan, submit that new referral, that kind of thing. And Jeremy, yes.
I think to help keep folks on track with their caseloads, there is something that you can create, update to manage your layout. And it is latest, I think, latest ed goal. And I think as well, I keep age on the layout as well, so that I can, you know, kind of just quickly see what age they're at. And then if there's no active ed goal, you know, why is there no active ed goal? You can kind of quickly look in. So those are just a couple ideas that I've presented to our transition staff in Lewiston.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could,
'cause
and
like-
you can see if there's an MSG missing by using the MSG tracking layout. And
Yeah.
just like what Jeremy said, I mean, you can see if, oh shoot, I forgot to put an expected end or an actual end date because this kid graduated. You know, you could see all that stuff with just scanning down a layout and certain display columns.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I want to say somebody went back and it was 6 months that the ed goal was changed back to where it ended. And so there was 6 months of pre-ETS authorizations and CRP services that we had to figure out. So that's not the norm. I'm just, you know, letting you guys know, like I said, from quality assurance, and if we get audited and all that jazz, it's just, you know, accurate data is key. So as I always say, so I appreciate you guys listening to my little plug, and you guys are so awesome. Like I said, I was a VRC for a short time, and well, as you see, I've moved to a different position. So good for you guys. I'm so proud of you guys for being able to do all that, and envious. So
I have a quick question. So listening to this, I'm thinking now, because I enter a lot of the pre-ETS apps and now I'm doing regular apps. If I'm putting in their education, which I always do, that sounds to me like it would be a good idea to send a reminder to my to-do to myself, so that whether it's 2 years from now or whatever, to enter measure skill gains, which is obviously a reminder to get a diploma to find out. Does that make sense?
that's, I used to do that as a VRC. I would make to go out.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to do that too
And-
for when IPEs needed to be updated, and, you know, when I needed to remember to ask for transcripts and things like that, for sure.
And Patty, you can use the activity due and assign that to people if you want to remind other people to do it. You can
Okay,
open up-
I know. I just sometimes feel like,
Yeah, no, I get it. But I mean, it is a tool that I don't think we use all that often, and it would be way better if they could fix the dashlets where you could have like your pending activity dues right on your
Right.
home screen. So when those things
Right.
get fixed, if they ever do, then I think we can
I was
revisit.
doing it when I was trying to clamor for a bunch of
Yeah.
diplomas. So I would send myself a reminder, and that just reminded me that if they didn't send it yet, to follow back up. But I think this is great. When I enter the apps now, I'll immediately put that in. So that's good. Thank you. I should have said
Yeah.
thank you.
No problem. And we are scheduled to end right now. So any parting questions? Okay, everybody have a tubular Tuesday.
Thank you again for attending. We really
Bye.
appreciate it.